Springfest at Lowe's means can't miss savings for your home and lawn. Right now, buy 3 bags, get 3 free on Miracle-Gro 3/4 cubic foot all-purpose garden soil. Plus, buy 2, get 1 free on select exterior paint and stain via mail-in rebate. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 4/16, excludes Alaska and Hawaii. While supplies last, selection varies by location. See rebate form for complete list of eligible products. Offer excludes clearance and mist tints and can't be combined with any other offer, promotion, discount, or coupon.
Welcome to a special edition of the Ankler Podcast. This is Sean McNulty of the Wake Up Newsletter here at the Ankler, and I'm joined by Executive Editor Alison Brower, who very kindly stepped in for me at the NAB conference when my back unexpectedly stepped out on me in a very painful way in Las Vegas, and took the reins for our big WWE interview with President Nick Khan and Chief Content Officer Paul Triple H Levesque. But first, I gotta say, Alison, I was really very disappointed to have missed this. But I literally, could not sit on a chair for an hour to have this conversation, much less I think 10 minutes at that point. So a sincere thank you for jumping in to do this for me, myself, and the team.
Well, I am very sorry for the cause of this situation, but I will say that I had a great time talking to these 2 executives and creatives. It was a really fun conversation, and they got into a ton of topics about the business and the storytelling of WWE, and it was really a good time.
This brand is kind of like everywhere when you kind of like dive into it. I mean, so from YouTube to Netflix to the CW, good old broadcast TV, the CW to Peacock, you guys are, covering a lot of different areas there across the conversation.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the Netflix relationship started in January, and that's been extremely successful for them. And I think has made them look at the brand in a new way because of the global reach and just seeing how many different kinds of audiences respond to them everywhere. Yet they're still on broadcast, as you said, with USA and the CW, and they've still got the Peacock relationship for another year for the premium live events. So they've got a lot going on. We also talked about YouTube, which is obviously a huge concern for Hollywood, taking over so much of the time on every screen, including in the living room. But they have a really smart strategy of how YouTube fits into their brand and how their talents use it. So they seem to have a really close grip on what they can accomplish, and that there's a lot more growth ahead of them.
And outside of the right stuff, Alison, the talent obviously is a big part of the whole brand, really, there. So you dove in to kind of just find out how the secret sauce is made, I think, would be what secrets we can get from them.
Yeah. With Triple H having been a performer himself for many years and now running the organization, he has an incredibly great sense of the storytelling, of how audiences respond to them, about how the audience response can sometimes change the storylines, about how to pull the talent into storylines. And it was also really interesting to hear how they develop their talent. NXT on the CW is partly a developmental league, so to speak, but also just hearing how they recruit athletes out of college and how they kind of break them down before they build them up, and how they find the guys and women who can really perform at the level that they need in this very truly, unique hybrid of sports and entertainment that they create. It was a really entertaining, insightful talk.
All right, let's hear all the details from the guys. Here's Alison's conversation with Nick and Triple H on stage at the NAB conference.
Thank you so much, everyone. Good morning. Please welcome Nick Khan, president of WWE and a TKO board member, and Paul, who you all obviously know, Triple H Levesque, chief content officer of WWE. Thank you so much for being here. You've had a big year. Raw had a huge launch on Netflix. I think it's in the top 10 pretty much every week. And it's now a quarter in, maybe slightly more than a quarter in. So what have been the learnings from this new platform for your programming, and in terms of the business, sponsorships, revenue, audience, where they're watching, what kind of screen they're watching on, when they're watching? What have you learned from this new relationship?
It's number one, thanks for having us today. Thank you, all of you, for coming today. We appreciate it. This is my hometown, by the way, Las Vegas, so happy to be there. Netflix has been phenomenal for us. They're a phenomenal partner. Their reach, when you hear 300 million plus subscribers, which equates to a potential of 700 million people, it just enables WWE to go to the next level. Paul and I often joke about 25 years or so ago, WWE was on UPN and what was called the Nashville Network, which became the National Network, which became TNN, which became Spike. And to see how far our company has gone since those days to where we are now with Netflix and that global audience. It's been great for business. It's been great for our fans.
And what about creatively, Paul, with how the audience engages socially with the programming now? What have been the learnings creatively from this relationship for you?
Well, I think what's amazing about Netflix is, first of all, the global nature of what it is, but also everybody is on the platform. So, I have young kids, or fairly young kids, not as young as I'd like to think they are, but they don't even really know when other television shows are on. They have no concept of that unless it's a live sport. Everything else they watch is just on demand. They just go to a service and turn it on. That ease of everybody being on Netflix is the reason why Netflix and chill is a saying. It's not ABC and chill or CBS and chill, right? Netflix and chill. It's culturally significant and it's easy to get to. So fans literally, if you have Netflix, no matter where you are on the globe, there it is right in front of you. It's one click and you're on and you're in, and it's simplicity of use. And the best part is the kids that are there are the most vocal socially. So that platform is built for social engagement, which, we were just in Europe and coming on at different times and scaling when we're coming on the air, going live in Europe as opposed to the US for the start of the show. And it was interesting to see how much the social conversation in those countries led around the world, where we were trending, number one almost all day, because we would start at an early hour, what would be an early hour in the US internationally, and it would just run all day long trending.
You've had a global presence before. Raw's had a global presence for a long time, but this really gives you much broader, and it's like you're with primarily one platform through the global footprint. So it gives you a more sort of consistent presence globally, I guess, and I guess you're getting a lot from this through the day, these learnings about the audience.
We are. I'll even tell you a personal experience I had last summer before the Netflix deal was up and running. I was in Spain. The WWE programming was on WWE Network, which still existed in Spain. And I would say it was almost impossible to get the right setup in our hotel room where we could watch, compared to, and this may seem so obvious to all of you, and again, Paul and I have joked about this, if you're traveling internationally and you go to Netflix, it's the same interface that you have at home. And I think there's a level of comfort that people have with that, instead of where do I find it? And I don't know these channels. And hopefully I can find Raw. It's simple as when you're home, you go to Netflix, you see the avatars of you. And if you have a family, your family, you click on it. It's still hey, you still have to finish this program. Here's what's recommended to you. And then certainly on my home screen, Paul's home screen, it's always Raw. It's just so easy. And we think the easier you make things for people in difficult and tricky technological times, the better it is.
Yeah, and I would say that, I've been fortunate enough through my 30-year career to go basically every place in the world. And there's no place on the planet that WWE doesn't resonate, right?
Right.
When we go there, there's a massive amount of fans there. This is the first time ever that it's been simplified in a way that globally, the world over, there's one place, you know where it is, you know when it's on, and you can just go click on it and get there. Whereas before, it was multiple partners all over the place, right, depending on where you were, depending on when it was on and what time, and everything else under the sun. It was very difficult to get to, as Nick said. This is just so easy now for everyone. Yes,
and as you said, the scale, more than 300 million subscribers worldwide, and it really has become sort of our TV utility, Netflix. It's everywhere. We know how to use it. But, before this, back in 2021, your first big move as president was moving WWE for the PLEs onto Peacock. And now that's 4 years ago, which is a couple of lifetimes in the entertainment industry, especially in recent years. So can you kind of refresh us on what the sort of strategy and economic levers were around making that decision at that time, and sort of what the learnings have been from that relationship?
Absolutely. And by the way, as with any big decision at WWE, that was a collective decision made by myself, Paul, and others at the time. But I can tell you this, in 2014, WWE Network launched as a standalone OTT service. And if you think back to how ahead of the game that was, in 2014, you only had to be the third best OTT to be the third best OTT in the world, behind Netflix and Hulu. Then when, if you want to refer to it as the streaming wars began, we sat down together and said, look, for a company of our size at the time, this was pre-TKO, of our size, we're not going to be able to compete technologically with the Netflixes of the world. Disney, if you recall, had bought MLB Advanced Media. They were getting into the OTT space. All others were getting into the OTT space. And we said, we're not going to be able to commit those sort of financial resources to keep this network as advanced as we need it to be. And at the same time, in case there's any confusion on this, we're not trying to be the best technology company in the world. We're trying to be the best wrestling company in the world. So for us to outsource that programming and do the deal with Peacock, which at that time, it was just after the vaccines came out, it was height of COVID, budgets were getting crunched. Peacock had the Olympics delayed by a year, and it was the right place, right time for us. We've loved our Peacock relationship. We love NBCU, and there's just under a year left on that deal.
Right.
Although technology is my middle name, so.
So as you look at, now you've had experience with a couple of different streamers, looking at and you're still on broadcast, and we'll talk about that too, but looking at your streaming relationships, what are the priorities over the next decade for what you want to do on streaming? Like, what are the business levers that are most important, and as well, what are the creative opportunities of streaming for you?
So I think we get the live ratings and the 24-hour ratings, viewership, from Netflix in real time. Oh. So even if you look at the 3.5-week European tour that Paul just led us on, where you're talking about Bologna, Italy, London twice, Brussels, Barcelona, all of these different cities internationally, we, to my knowledge, had never done televised events on the road to WrestleMania from international locations, all massive turnouts by our fan base there. You can't just pipe out American content globally and expect that it's going to resonate. You have to be boots on the ground. And that's what Paul, the creative team, our superstars, and everyone else across that was. By the way, it's not easy, but it had to be done. It was a massive success for us in terms of live gate, merchandise, and perhaps most importantly, viewership. So it's already working, and look for more of that from us as we move forward.
We're a wonderful blend of sport and entertainment, and we resonate in a different way sort of than anything else does. Globally for us, it's simple. It resonates everywhere. The opportunity that we have through streaming is just to amplify that. With our talent, we can now, with that amplification, we can recruit globally. We can begin to create bigger stars internationally, as well as stars in the U.S., and have them resonate everywhere. So we have that ability to, while we're globalizing and making everything bigger, we have an opportunity to also localize it and bring it down to that local look and feel for where we are in the moment. So it's an exciting time.
Let's talk about YouTube, which everyone in Hollywood is talking about every day, all day now, because it's dominating living rooms. I mean, not dominating, but has the highest percentage of hours in living rooms, and is increasingly threatening linear of all kinds as well as streaming. What's your audience's relationship to YouTube? How do you guys use it? How do you see it being part of the mix going forward?
So I'll start that off, and then Paul, if good by you, I'll tee you up on our consumer habits going into our big premium live events and how they watch things and where they watch it. WWE has over 110 million YouTube subscribers. We're the number 10 most subscribed to YouTube channel out there. That's not sports channel or sports-esque channel. That's just channels. So if you look at the things ahead of us, you have Coco Melon / Moonbug. You have Mr. Beast. You have Indian music channels. But there's no other sports league that's even close to where we are. What WWE, which is also, we think, quite dominant on all social media platforms, when traditional news wouldn't cover us because they looked down on what we did and didn't think it was newsworthy, we had to go find a way to make sure that our message got out there. So we were way ahead of the game, and this certainly predates me, on Twitter, now X, way ahead of the game on Instagram, way ahead of the game on YouTube. So if you look at our viewership on YouTube, it's supplemental to Netflix, Peacock, USA, the CW, and everything else that we do. and we think we're one of the only brands where it's that way.
Yeah, so I mean, as Nick said, all of those things that have the broader reach that people are watching just in their spare time, that is where young folks are, but more and more it's skewing through all ages. I sort of creatively look at YouTube and X and everything else as that's where we put our trailers. And when WWE, when we do what we do, the end of our events, sort of there's all these moments that create an emotional capture for people. And that's really what sticks with people. It's how you make them feel, not what you say or what you do, right? That's a Maya Angelou thing. But they remember how it makes them feel. But to take those moments, those feelings, the moments between our talent, whether verbal or action-oriented, to be able to capture that emotion for the 10,000, 15,000, 60,000 that are in attendance. When you're putting them in clip form on these things, you're not giving away the sport. You're not giving away what we do. They're like trailers. And it is, while people will consume a lot of our content in that manner, we're actually driving them back to the longer form content as well that they're already very familiar with. So when you see that clip that's of a moment that you think, man, I have to go back and watch that whole thing. It's a wonderful back and forth, and you can go there and relive those moments at any point in time.
If I could just add one thing onto that,
sure.
Paul will often say, so NFL, obviously number one sport in the United States, it's not even close. When people are going into the Super Bowl, they don't go back and watch the Super Bowl from 7 years ago. When we're going into WrestleMania, people will go back and watch WrestleMania from years ago, and we find that for all of our big events.
Yeah, we're not just a sport in that sense where once you've seen it, it's done. We are entertainment. Our product is evergreen. The characters are generational. So Bruno Sammartino to Hulk Hogan to Macho Man Randy Savage to Austin to Rock, Taker, right? Cena.
Triple H.
Triple H. Those characters resonate from generation to generation. What's wonderful about our product also is that families come together to watch it. Dads and moms bring their kids, grandparents bring their kids and their grandkids to these shows, and then they talk about who they watched. Oh, my day it was Bruno, and my day it was Hulk Hogan, right? And you can go back and capture those things. We are way more akin almost to the Rocky movie than we are to boxing as a sport.
So you talked about emotion capture, I think was the phrase you just used. And Paul, can you take us more into how you build these emotions, how you build these stories, how you have your teams working across the three main shows, differentiating those stories, how far out you sort of plan the timelines, just how it works. How does your team operate?
So we have a fairly large team of writers that are from all over, all different types of sports, different types of entertainment functions. So some people are better at, punching up comedy. Some people are better at drama or whatever. We really approach this as trying to find the right performers and characters that have the charisma to capture your attention and emotion. Once we do that, we put them in what are sometimes fantastical, sometimes just ordinary everyday situations. And how can we then tell stories that relate to you personally, where you can feel what that person is going through? You can understand the day-to-day of sort of what they're going through and trying to get to where they're going. And like most people would fantasize about in their life, at the end of it, you get to beat the crap out of them in a 20-foot by 20-foot ring, right? That's people's fantasy world. We get to do it in real life, which is the best part. We tend to plan things out in the long term. So I feel like creative is like GPS. So we figure out where we want to go maybe a year from now. Sometimes we might even think that through a couple of years, right? And penciled in where we would like to get to. And then we can backtrack our way into it and see if that's still the right direction. We might pivot and change directions along the way. But what is guiding us is our fan, right? So our fans come to the event every night, whatever city we're in. We have, 10,000, 15,000, 60,000 fans there. It's like the perfect test. We do what we do, they react to it, and we know we're either headed in the right direction or we need to pivot and change this. So we have a focus group every night that helps guide our process.
That's a unique relationship that many traditional Hollywood storytellers and studios would be very jealous of. But how also does the talent get involved in the process of the storytelling as they respond to what you're giving them? Does that inflect where the stories go?
Absolutely. I love for our teams to be super collaborative. they know their characters better than anybody because they are their characters, and they have a sense and an emotional feeling of what is happening within their stuff. So we work with them on how do we want to execute this. We give them sort of the direction, and then we're working together hand in hand with them to what are the words they're saying, how are they saying it, what does the match look like, what are the moments we're creating, and what are the right tweaks and turns. Sometimes you do stuff that it happens and it's not the reaction you were thinking was going to happen, right? I'd like to think we're pretty good at that, but every now and then you do one where you're like, wow, didn't see that happening. So now I want all the ideas of how to pivot on that. I would like to get all the ideas, and then we figure out together as a team what's the best direction to take that in.
And you mentioned you've been in this world since 1995. You're a former wrestler. You know how the audience responds. Do you feel like how do your expectations and interpretations of how the audience is responding to the storylines and the stars, how does that differ maybe from some of the younger members of your writing team or people who are newer to the sport, newer to the whole WWE world?
I think we all bring a different point of view. It's what's great about getting all the ideas. While I know you guys thought I was serious about the technology comment, I might not be the most tech savvy guy. So having those young kids in the room when we're going over stuff, it's really helpful because I cannot write to a 20-year-old as efficiently as a 20-year-old can write to the 20-year-old, right? So there's a lot of that within our creative where I want it to be authentic to the talent. We want it to be authentic to them, to their culture, to their voices unique to them and who they represent. So it's helpful to have all those points of view coming in so that you can then make an educated decision as to where it all goes to.
Right. And what about you two? What's your collaboration like as you figure out business decisions together and creative decisions together? I know you've got your roles, but how much are you talking every day? What's your style?
I would say we talk anywhere from 14 to 40 times a day.
Wow.
And Paul's the best business partner I've ever had. It's anywhere from 30-second conversations to long conversations. It's an ability to share points of view with one another. We sort of have a saying like, hey, we're not talking about each other's children here. So if I have a thought on our creative, if Paul has a thought on business, he's as much across the business as I am. And obviously there is no business if the creative is not strong. So that's what it all comes down to. So we're in constant contact with one another.
So I'll reiterate what he said, not to seem like this bromance up here, but
we love it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Nick's the best business partner that I have ever worked with, especially in the sense of he has an intuitive feel around the industry, around how it works, where things are going to go. I cannot tell you how many times it's sort of how our relationship started, him telling me things that were going to happen and then me watching them happen and thinking like, how did this guy know all this? It still happens to this day. He will say, this is where I feel like this is going, and 9 times out of 10, maybe more, that's exactly where it goes. And he just gets things done. So he's awesome.
By the way, it's very kind of you. If I could just say one thing to the crowd here. Anyone here who lived in Vegas in the 1980s? Just a quick show of hands.
Nobody grew up in Vegas, dude. Yeah,
Only you, Nick.
Listen, 1980 census, there were 200,000 people living in Las Vegas. It was small, right? But in a pre-cable world, in a 3-network world, so before Fox launched, in Las Vegas, the sports that were covered by the local news were boxing, UNLV basketball, and wrestling, because wrestling was out of the old Showboat Hotel on a frequent basis. Shawn Michaels, I don't want to say started his career there, but early on in his career, Shawn runs NXT for us. That Showboat Casino had a massive impact on my childhood because you could go there, and this is when, it was general admission $4, kids $2. You'd go watch wrestling, you'd go watch boxing, you'd read about it in the paper. So one of the many great things about Las Vegas is people are accepted here for who they are, in my opinion. I never, when in this world where some years ago would look down on wrestling, that was so foreign to me. It was there, it brought people fun, it brought emotion to people. Same with boxing, with people, it's violent or this, that. If you don't like it, don't watch it. But to me, it was always something that was part of the mainstream and always something that I respected. I think in large part for growing up primarily here.
You're touching on something I did want to ask about, which is your storytelling, resonates in every state. It resonates around the world. At a time when you have this ability to reach every audience and tap into every part of the culture, that's an amazing opportunity and a responsibility. So how do you sort of embrace that, and what do you get back from that, the fact that you can really reach so many audiences of all kinds?
I think one of the important things is, as much as we listen to our audience, we won't listen to social media and respond on that. We think it's a minority of voices, meaning a small percentage of voices, who have big microphone or megaphone in front of them. It's a mistake to respond to your business based off of that. You got to base it off your gut and the results. So for us, we not only program for all 50 states, we try to program for the world, especially with the Netflix deal. So what do people like? People like dramas. People like conflict. They like to see conflicts being resolved one way or the other. As Paul mentioned, in our business, you get to knock each other out in a 20-by-20 ring. People like that too. So for us, we want to appeal to everybody. As Paul also mentioned, multi-generational viewing. Almost 50% of the people who attend our live events come with a child. That's important to us.
Yeah.
Number one, it's family-friendly viewing. Number two, that's our next generation of viewer. So I would assume, as you guys graciously give us a lot of head nods in this Q&A, that a lot of you are wrestling fans. I would assume it started for most of you when you were young, and you stayed with it, and maybe you checked out for a couple of years as a teenager because other things became of interest to you, and then you checked back in. We want to be there with people for, it's exactly right, correct? We want to be there with people for their lifetimes, and we think, we've done a decent job of doing that.
It's completely one of my favorite things when we get a chance, whether it's WrestleMania week, where we get to meet a lot of fans at our other events, like the World, which is our fan event, is when people come and talk about, I watched this when I was a kid. I was so into this when I was a kid. I watched it through college. I got out of college and I kind of got out of it. And all of a sudden my kids are, 6, 7, 8 years old, and they've just discovered WWE. And I've gotten back into it, and it's the greatest thing ever. Like, now they get to share that with their kids, watch it with them. It's something that bonds them together, and it's family entertainment that you can have those moments with your family, then bring them to the shows. And, when you see parents that are sitting there with their kid, and their kid slaps Jey Uso's hand when he walks by, and it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to this kid in his life. He doesn't want to wash his hand for a week, whatever it is. Those are the moments that you can really, really, really appreciate what we do and how it impacts people and their families and their everyday lives. It's the best part of what we do.
This episode is brought to you by Temptations Cat Treats. Your cat will come running for the perfectly irresistible Temptations Creamy Puree and Temptations Lickable Spoon Cat Treats. The best time to feed lickable cat treats to your cat is anytime. Feed by hand for a playful moment, in a bowl for a creamy treat, or as a topper to make mealtime fun. Visit TemptationsTreats.com to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's tax season, and we're all a bit tired of numbers. But here's one you need to hear. $16.5 billion. That's how much the IRS flagged for possible identity fraud last year. Now here's a good number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it. Guaranteed. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
In addition to building audiences, connecting with audiences, generations of audiences, another thing you guys are very, very good at is building stars and minting stars. Another area where I think legacy entertainment, legacy sort of scripted entertainment could use more energy. So how does it work? What's the farm system? What's the maybe difference or not difference between when you were coming in the 90s and what you're looking for in a star you want to build and foster now in 2025?
So we have a very robust recruitment system that in the forefront of it looks at college athletes. So if you really break down college athletes in the U.S., there's a very small percentage of high-level college athletes that will go on to play a professional sport. So that will go on to make it to the NFL, that will go on to, play in the WNBA, or in a lot of sports, there is no pro version, right? You either end it at college, you try to make it to the Olympics if that's an option, but once that's all over, you're either off to a regular career or you are into coaching or something like that, right?
Yeah.
The wonderful thing about what we do is the athleticism or the sport you come from almost doesn't matter. We do want to recruit the best athletes, but out of that pool of the best athletes, we're looking for the biggest personalities. You cannot teach charisma, right? So that X factor of the person that comes in and you can't take your eye off them, he or she, the person that really just captivates you, that's almost more important than the physical athletic ability of what we do. As long as they don't have two left feet and they can do things reasonably well and safely, then the charisma is the other factor. It's by far the biggest factor we look for. The one surprising thing that I would think that people would see is when we do our tryouts, we physically exhaust people day one and just physically destroy them. And we're looking for how they react. Day two, we bring them in and we physically destroy them again for the first half of the day. And what we're not trying to just show you how hard this is. What we're trying to do is break people down to show us who they really are, right? They will begin the process knowing, well, I've got to be upbeat. I've got to be a team player. I've got to be all these things. And that's easy to do when you can breathe. As soon as you can't breathe and you're thinking, please don't puke in front of all these people, and all that stuff breaks down. Now we see who you really are. Do you push the other person down to move ahead, or do you help pick the person up next to you and say, come on, man, we can do this. Get up. Let's go. Right? Are you a motivator? Are you a leader? We look for that emergent leader because at the end of the day, we put on a show, and I like to think it's the greatest show on the planet, but it takes a team that works with other teams of crew and staff and writers and producers to put all this on. You have to be, while it's an individual business to some degree, you have to be a team player and a leader to be able to take that to the next level, and that's one of the things we focus on a lot.
May I add one thing to that? Yeah. We have the same exact modus operandi in our hiring of executives. It's the same quality.
We wipe you out, and then
they can't breathe.
There's certain
Chair
things,
over the head.
Sometimes, not that often. There's certain things that we'll look for in that. There's a couple of buzzwords that annoy the hell out of me. When I see somebody and I say, "Hey, how you doing?" Busy. I'm busy. It's like, well, number one, I expect you to be busy if you're working here and getting compensated. Number two, I feel I'm busy is sort of a way of saying, I'm really involved in a lot of important things. It's like someone says hello to your work. Hey, how you doing? I'm great. How are you doing? Or if something's really bad, as senior leaders of the company, come talk to us about that as well. But the I'm busy thing will drive me crazy. I know it drives Paul crazy on the athlete side. If someone's, oh my God, I'm exhausted. Like, yeah, what did you think this was going to be? You thought this was going to be easy? The other thing, and this is a bit self-contradictory, so indulge me. I hate people who use the words I, me, and my. We're a we and us company. And you immediately sniff out, I think, in athletes and in executives, the one who are only interested in themselves. Because at the end of the day, everybody knows who does the work. So 1,000 times I'll text Paul or message him on WhatsApp, great show tonight. His response always, the team did great. It's never, thank you, I did this and that, and I decided, John Cena's heel turn would do X, Y, and Z. It's just never that way. And I found that to be sort of inherent in people. They're either that way, they're team players, or they're credit takers. And if you're a credit taker in the ring or out of the ring in our company, I haven't seen it work long term.
Yes, I think that I'm going to applaud that. We have a lot of we at our company as well.
I just add one thing to that as well, just because it just popped into my head as we're saying it. I think a lot of times people are really gifted at what they do, and sometimes that can be a wonderful trait, but it can also lend people to be a little bit less hungry because things come easy to them. So sometimes when we're looking at athletes, when we're looking at corporate talent, sometimes young and inexperienced, but they'll run through a wall is better than a little more seasoned, expert at this, but, like I'm not looking to take on the world here. And you know what I mean? Like there's just this comfort with it of them being so talented that they can handle all this. I find that sometimes when you're over talented, it makes you lazy.
This is good news for those of us who aren't over talented.
Agreed.
So we've seen, a lot of different celebrities and people who are stars in other arenas come into WWE. You've had Kim Kardashian, Bad Bunny, Vanessa Hudgens, Betty White. I looked back a little bit, found the Muppets, Jon Stewart. You've had all kinds of people get involved. I know, with Netflix, the reach is even bigger, the sort of range is even bigger. Who are some names or characters that you would love to get involved, get closer to the ring going forward?
So one note on that, it used to be in wrestling that people from outside of wrestling would come to us on the downside of their career. So with all respect to the greatest, when Muhammad Ali, was the special guest referee for WrestleMania 1, his in-ring career was over, right? Now what you're seeing, you saw it, Paul was across this deal, it predates me. When Floyd Mayweather came to the WWE, he was on his ascent. When Tyson Fury came to the WWE, he was on his ascent. It used to be with broadcasters also, for the ones who came from outside of wrestling. They'd come sort of as their last stop, if you will. Again, not the ones that we grow internally, like Michael Cole, who's done phenomenal work. Now you see Pat McAfee coming on the ascent of his career. Joe Tessitore on the ascent of his career. People want to be here. We think Bad Bunny set a new bar in terms of celebrities, if you will, who want to come into wrestling. That guy put in the work. And if you saw his match, or you remember, his match, he did everything asked of him and beyond. He was early, he showed up, set a new bar for us where everyone else who's now come into it is expected to be held up to that standard. And to their credit, they have been. Paul, anything you want to add to that?
Another thing I would say is I look at this different because I was an in-ring performer, so there were times when celebrities came in during my career and, they want to do something big with us or whatever it was, and you could tell they don't like this at all. They're just doing this because they need some clout in the world and we're hot and they want to get in on it. That bothers me. It bothers me as a performer. It feels like somebody's then coming in and trying to leech off of you, which might be a bad word, but like bad term for that, but it's how it felt. Mm-hmm. I think we love the fact that right now celebrities want to come work with us. They're massive fans. They grew up massive fans. We get so many calls right now of people wanting to come into the product. I'm like, I just don't know what to do with this person. They come to the show or something, but there's only so many things we can make happen. But the fact that they want to do it, and when they do it, I can't tell you, but Travis Scott did some stuff with us recently in the ring, and he came back and was like a little kid jumping up and down. He said, low key, that's better than performing. Bert Kreischer just did something with us the other day where he was like, bucket list, I've got the bug. I want to go train. I want to come and do something else. Bad Bunny was incredible, as Nick said. When he wanted to perform with us, our performance center where we train our athletes is in Orlando, Florida. Bunny went down there, rented a house a few miles away, and was at the performance center every day. This is one of the biggest musicians on the planet. Doesn't need to be doing this. He was there every day, beat up, didn't matter. I would see him there. He'd be sweating and just put his all into it because he loves what we do, and he's like a little kid doing it. So if they have that passion for it, come on, let's have some fun.
Logan Paul, if you look at what he's done in the ring, to his credit, putting in the time to learn the craft. I ran into Bad Bunny at some, unrelated sporting event after he did the match with us. And the first thing he said to me was, brother, he's like, I've watched my match 50 times. I still can't believe you guys let me do it. And I said to him, of course, hey, we can believe that you did it to the level you did. If you remember that match, if you watched it, incredible.
And last thing I'll say on this is Betty White was a badass.
A couple more business questions, and then we're going to talk about coming attractions. Nick, you still have a big presence on Broadcast USA and the CW. How does that fit into the equation of the business overall? And especially, can you tell us what's been going on with NXT since it's moved to the CW?
Absolutely. So NXT is on broadcast. CW is a broadcast network. As you just mentioned, SmackDown on USA, our premium live events on Peacock, and Raw on Netflix. We wanted to give our fans a chance to watch our product wherever best suits them. One thing we noticed with CW, Paul was quite gracious earlier and said, hey, sometimes I have an ability to see what's going on in the business. If you started watching CW when Nexstar took over, I'm 50, so I'm still like a direct TV guy, and I have all the OTT services, but I'm not purely direct to consumer. So when you put on that grid, you would see on what is Channel 5 in Los Angeles, where I live, the CW channel, you would see college football games and college basketball games, and you were reading what they were up to, and you sort of said like, oh, these new owners, they understand, like, we don't want to compete in the scripted business with the Netflixes of the world, with the HBOs of the world. We want to actually go out and get live content, which will obviously drive transmission fees and advertising dollars. So, hey, we're live content. When we sat with them, it was an easy fit. Their default on everything is yes. You call them, you ask for something, yes. And I'd like to think that they think the same about us. Our ratings have almost doubled on NXT over the course of the last year since we moved to CW. And, again, Shawn Michaels, with Paul continues to deliver great content there, but very, very happy with that relationship.
And for those who don't know, like NXT is our developmental system, or it started out that way.
Sort of your farm team, right?
Yeah, it's sort of our farm team in a way. So, when you break that down, what you see is a lot of athletes competing and performing on that show that have been doing this for a year, 2 years. They're coming out of college, we're training them, and within a year or two, they're on that show doing what they do. So that viewership, that connection to that brand is staggering. And for a lot of our fans, it's for them like seeing the band that is going to be the next huge thing when it just gets started. So it's sort of like that badge of honor of you were watching in the very, very beginning.
Well, that's very cool. So speaking of the legacy and going from the beginning and coming to today, let's talk about WrestleMania 41 coming to Vegas, not this coming weekend, next weekend, live from Allegiant Stadium. I think this crowd is ready. So, Nick, we talked about this backstage. Last time WrestleMania was here in Vegas was more than 30 years ago. You're from Vegas. You talked about this before. What does this city bring to this event? What does this event bring to this city? And what do you remember from 1993?
So number one, a tease for everyone. The opening of WrestleMania is going to be about Las Vegas. Wait until you see this thing. It's incredible. 1993, WrestleMania 9 at Caesar's Palace. I was an usher at that event. My freshman year at UNLV, which is where I went to college, I worked full-time as a waiter, and I would do the part-time ushering thing to make more money. So, I'm really proud to have that event here.
And Paul, I know you have a lot lined up for fans besides just Saturday and Sunday. So what's the hype? What's going to be happening throughout the week, and what are the experiences you guys are bringing for fans?
So one of the things when WrestleMania comes in, we will take over Vegas. So we will have an event called World that will be our fan event with our partners, Fanatics and others, that autograph sessions and attractions for them to see. That will be open every day pretty much during that week through the weekend. We will be doing Raw. We will be doing SmackDown. We will be doing NXT. We will be doing the Hall of Fame. We will have parties at the Fontainebleau every night with high-end performers every night after the shows. We will be doing a roast of WrestleMania on Sunday night after the events are over, where Tony Hinchcliffe will come in and sort of do a roast of WrestleMania weekend. There is something literally for everybody, and I didn't even mention when you get to WrestleMania weekend itself, Saturday morning, NXT will do a premium live event. So it's a whole week series of events. Our fans will come in from all over the world, from every state. I don't even know how many countries.
All 50 states, 17 different countries at this moment in time. And just quickly, Paul, if I could interrupt on that, we have Triple H being inducted as a wrestler into the Hall of Fame.
Woohoo!
Which he tricked me into, by the way. Yeah.
It had to be done. And Tony Hinchcliffe, when Paul and I and Chris Legentil, our head of talent, were talking to him, Tony said, hey, the deal was already in place and we're talking about different things. And he said, hey, by the way, I've been to 5 Royal Rumbles. I've never been to a WrestleMania. Is there a way I could also come to the show? And it was like, yeah, no brainer, of course. You'll be our guest. But it sort of, again, speaks to the power of what Paul, the creative team, and the wrestlers have been building, that, again, people on their ascent are wanting to do things with us. It's a whole weekend planned, as Paul said. There's something almost every minute of the day for our fans to do with us, should they so choose. And yes, the main events are the 2 nights of WrestleMania.
You talked about the NXT PLE. All your PLEs in the U.S., this will be on Peacock. And then internationally, it'll mostly be on Netflix. I know you mentioned the Royal Rumble, the one in February, even though it wasn't on Netflix in the U.S., it made the Netflix top 10 globally, which just really shows how much impact you are having globally. And so what are your expectations for this one? Are you looking for that same result? What are your hopes?
Look, as with any company, any record that's set, our intent is to break it. And we think the creative has come in an organic way that's resonating. By the way, the Travis Scott, John Cena heel turn, what was that at, Paul, in terms of social media impressions? Over 100.
Oh, no, it was a couple 100 million.
It was insane. And Paul did tell Travis after, like, hey, that was a pretty hard slap. We'll show you, how to pull your punches a little bit. And Travis said, Dwayne Johnson told me you better slap the shit out of him, or people are going to think that you don't have it. So I just did that, and Paul chuckled, and I chuckled, and it was a pretty big moment for us.
Yeah, it was incredible. Ironically, the only person that didn't complain about the slap was Cody Rhodes. He just wanted it to look good. So, like I said, Travis, like a kid in a candy store on that thing. He'll be at WrestleMania. A lot of people will be at WrestleMania. And, there's a saying here that everything in Vegas stays in Vegas, but this will be the one event that whatever happens in Vegas over WrestleMania weekend will be heard worldwide.
For sure. Nick, what is, and both of you, is WrestleMania, everything is the main event, but is WrestleMania the main event? How does it fit into the business annually? How big a part of it is WrestleMania? How important is it?
It's our Super Bowl. It's the biggest one for us. We expanded it to 2 nights in Tampa. The year before that was sort of beginning of COVID. And Paul and the creative team, did a phenomenal job in pulling off what they could pull off. The next year in 2021 was limited capacity Tampa, 2 nights. And by the way, people say, some people have said to us, so brilliant of you and Paul to make it a 2-night event. That was simply because WrestleMania at MetLife was 7 hours. And we sort of realized, that's a pretty long night. Let's sort of, spread this out. And then you look at the Las Vegas Visitors and Convention Authority, who's a partner of ours on this event. They love multi-night events, what they refer to as heads in beds. They have people coming in from all around the country and other parts of the world, as Paul and I previously mentioned, staying in Las Vegas, people who wouldn't otherwise be here. It's a great event for the fans. It's a great event for the city, and we hope it's a great event for us.
What's interesting with WrestleMania, though, is as big as it is, and it is our Super Bowl, we have this running joke on the writing team that, and this will happen, Sunday night WrestleMania will end. We will be we run the show out of what's called gorilla position, named after a famous wrestler, Gorilla Monsoon. But we will be sitting there as the show comes to a close, and within a couple of minutes, a writer's assistant will walk in and put Monday Night Raw in front of me. And right. That constitutes our off season. That minute or two before that writer's assistant puts Raw down in front of us, we are the story that never ends. There's always another chapter. No matter what the big event is, tomorrow it starts again, and we begin that journey again with the same characters, with new storylines, with fresh directions to go in. So while the Super Bowl, our Super Bowl, WrestleMania, sort of kind of ends things, it's also very much the beginning of things for us.
Very cool. The storytelling, the star minting, the connection with the audience, I've touched on this. There's a lot of lessons, I think, that other sports and sort of traditional Hollywood storytelling can learn from WWE. Are there more that you can think of? And also, is there anything, just as we wrap up here, that you guys learned from watching the Super Bowl, from watching the Oscars? Probably not. But what are some of the lessons you can learn from entertainment, and what do you think more sort of traditional entertainment can keep taking from your playbook?
I think we watch everything. We are, in some way, WWE is a reflection of culture. It's a reflection of a moment in time of where the world is. So I think we take inspiration from everything. If certain sports are presenting things in a certain way, we might take inspiration from that. Sometimes we see it and think, man, maybe we wouldn't have done it that way. It would have been better if they did this. Sometimes we're looking to do that. We take inspiration from everything. I cannot tell you how many times that we're not big into it, but you know, my wife will want to go see a Broadway show or something, and I will happily go. And well, the whole time I'm sitting there, I'm watching, and all I'm doing is breaking down the production, thinking like, I could do that. You know what I mean? Like we could take that and turn it into this, and we could make that into something even cooler within our live event and really take it to another level. So I think we take inspiration from everything, but I would also, trying not to sound arrogant on, I think a lot of the world takes inspiration from what we do. I cannot tell you how many sporting events or shows that I see now that are replicating some of our entrance stuff or the way we present things or the way we set up big events. You're seeing it more and more because everything, the news, sports, everything, it's entertainment. That's how we approach it. And I think that others are beginning to approach it that way as well, and that you cannot just present something in its basic form. You've got to give people more for their time, and you've got to do what we attempt to do is give them a spectacle.
Yeah. Well, they're going to get that next weekend here with WrestleMania and so much more. Thank you both for your time today. This was great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, NAB.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.